Welcome back, folks. I am John Najarian, the more handsome of the two Najarian brothers. There's
I'd
actually
agree.
four Najarian brothers, but
And I'm number 4. In all
I'm the
categories.
oldest. Pete's the youngest.
But I got
Welcome back to the Rebel Edge. What the hell is that squirrel's tail doing on Pete's chin? Is what
There's a lot of people who have comments. John, the number of comments I get on what some of the comments that actually say what they think it's used for is a little bit disturbing. But
I can only imagine.
It's just a girl. It's just a goatee. It's all it is.
Sometimes a goatee is just a goatee.
That's right. Here we go.
Welcome to the Rebel's Edge, folks. I'm John Najarian. He's Pete Najarian. You've seen us perhaps on webinars, on YouTube, on Twitter, and of course on the Halftime Report and Fast Money. We're delighted you're joining us. We're doing a little shakeout of some of the new things that we're bringing your way, including, of course, the wonderful topic bar over here to the right that will let you know what we're going to be hitting. So right now, Pete, we're going to talk about Twitter and Elon Musk and whether or not I went back and forth, Pete, just to let you know, and I mean him no disrespect, but Professor Galloway at the University of New York, and he and a bunch of other people were talking about how Elon Musk is just a scammer and he just wants out of this deal. And he already waived his right to inspect things, do due diligence or whatever. And as I pointed out to Professor Galloway, something I thought he would know, I said, there's a securities thing called a 10b5. And a 10b5 designation means that you have basically certified to the world that what you're putting out is true to the best of your knowledge, and you haven't omitted any facts or anything else. Right. So I said, it doesn't matter if he doesn't, if he has waived his right to inspect certain books. If he's saying that your bot count is way off and you don't have nearly as many real monthly active users, daily active users, that you've basically lied and committed fraud, he doesn't need to have due diligence. He could just basically say, it's a fraud.
I'm with you, John.
Thoughts, Pete?
I'm totally with you. I think this whole thing is absolute crap, the way that they're dragging Elon around. Now, Elon, let's be honest. The guy says things that most people would never say, but that's what makes him who he is. He's been that guy since everybody found out about who he was, and as he was growing into the world of finance, especially with Tesla, but obviously all the other companies, including solar and whatever you want, going up in space. But the guy's just creative beyond his imagination. And I think that he is dead on this one, John. I think you're right. I think if the bot count was way off, and that's a misrepresentation. And so I think he's got a leg to stand on. It makes total sense to me. And I could see why he'd want a little bit of a pushback, because they gave him this information that this is what they've got. And they clearly gave him information that was wrong. And if that's the case, because it seems pretty clear that it is, I think that he's sitting in a pretty good spot right now. And by the way, John, I mentioned this to somebody else, where he sold Tesla stock to get himself into position for the buy of Twitter. I think Elon, once again, has done something pretty good.
Well, he's certainly done something pretty good for Elon, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pete, what you touched on solar, and you didn't really mean this solar topic, but solar today, of course, the Biden administration is talking about rolling back tariffs on imported solar chips and photovoltaic and all the rest, which would make solar companies very happy because they could import that stuff from China without those huge tariffs on it. And it really caused a lot of stocks like JKS, SunPower, and Run Solar to jump. You had unusual activity on, I think, SPWR not too long ago, and that thing jumped pretty good today, and it's been moving up nicely for the last several weeks.
Yeah, clean energy, John. That's the thing that I think most people just really don't ever piece together is when oil's going up, that's actually not a bad thing for the green energy, right? I mean, because they're going to have to do.
Mhm.
People are looking at all the different ends of things, and I think that that's one of the things that so many people miss in the marketplace is what works against something else, and you'd think, well, that means solar's going to hell, right? No, no, solar's not. It's actually doing really well, and it's having a pretty good bounce. And you just were talking about it, but it's across the board. And you and I have seen a lot also, John, in the clean energy space as far as ETFs themselves. So there is a lot to this story. And and you know what? If I got to hear one more time about how the oil started to run when Russia entered Ukraine, these guys are out of their tree. Yeah, it did,
Yeah.
but that was just an extension of what we already did. I mean, how do you explain the 38 bucks November of 2020 happens to be right around the time the president got into office, a lot of the moves that they made to the point where we are just before the Ukrainian, with Russia going in there, and the price of oil was already 90. So, somebody explain that part, because it went from 38 to 90, and you couldn't really blame whoever. Now all of a sudden, well, it's that damn Putin. Well, yeah, Putin's added to it, but we added to it before that. And that's where energy is right now. That's where oil is. That's where nat gas is. And let's not forget nat gas, $9. It's going higher, probably, right, John?
Oh yeah. In fact, Scott Wapner asked Mark Fisher last week, Pete, when I was on the show with him,
Mhm.
could we see 20? And Mark goes, well, I don't know. If I say yes, I'm going to be wrong. So I might as well say yes. And Mark is, by the way, rarely wrong.
Yeah.
He is one of the best energy traders on earth for a reason. So, you look at where it was in Europe, Pete. In Europe, it
Mhm.
was like $6 per million British thermal unit or BTU. And
Mhm.
it was 33 last week. So
Mhm.
could it go to 20 here? You bet your sweet bippy it could.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you better be prepared for it, folks. What about Pete Didi?
Mm.
This was a deal where, of course, Uber was in China. They were having a really hard time competing. They
Mhm.
basically partnered up with Didi because it's China and you got to play ball with the Communist Party, right?
Mhm. Yep.
Um, but then, for some reason, people at Didi kind of fell afoul of the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, and
Imagine
they
that.
started a year-long investigation. And the stock fell all the way down into almost nothing land. Today, it made a really big pop, and it's
Mhm.
likely to keep making a pop because, why not? There's people with cars and people that need to get places. And I imagine it's a lot better than a taxi if
Yeah.
they have taxis over in China.
And it's all about the reopen trade, right, John? I mean, as China has gotten a little bit further along, because people who don't really follow this closely enough, they are just getting back and open, and getting excited about doing all the things that they want to do. I would just caution people with this, and I think you and I are on the same boat on this one for sure, John. But when I look at some of these names, DD being one of them, Baidu, JD, PDD, all these various acronyms that are out there for all these Chinese stocks, and every one of them is the Amazon of China, the Uber of China, the
The
whatever of China,
Twitter of China.
the Twitter of China. They're all something like that. But I will not own those stocks ever again, John. I got burned once. I'll never get burned by those communists again. It ticked me off how the whole thing went, and it was in a coffee stock. But I will say this: options are there, and options have been absolutely really interesting in a lot of the various Chinese names, not just the individual names, also the ETFs that we all talk about all the time. So that's the way to play it. I mean, the derivatives world gives you that option to be in there, and unintended, by the way, to be in there and not have the same risk as going in on a stock that's at 20 bucks, and also the next day you open your eyes and the Communist Party decided, we really don't like the way these guys are operating. I'd rather be in the options than the stock.
Well, let's talk about China, Pete, in a different way. Obviously, Top Gun Maverick is out there, and they always need a boogeyman. Every a good action movie has a boogeyman. Whether it's fundamental Islam, whether it's Russia, whether it's Serbians or Chinese or whatever. But Tom Cruise's movie has just been crushing it. And he was smart to wait until people could see it on the big screen, because as good as it will be, and I will watch it probably multiple times on my home theater when it's available, it's so much better on a big screen, Pete.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
you can feel it, those jets and, you know, the movement of air by things. It's just crazy.
And I don't think people realize this part, John. You do, because you always are reading stuff, but I always am impressed at all the things that you gain your knowledge with, all the things you read. But for the people who don't read like John does, I will tell you this: the guy does all his own stunts. The guy's hanging outside of an airplane as it's taken off, and it's Tom Cruise. It's not his, you know, sidekick. It's not some guy, you know, whatever. It's Tom Cruise. Everything he does it himself. And you can hate him all you want, but as our dad used to always say, right, John? He goes, "Have you ever seen a bad Tom Cruise movie?" You know, and our father was great about that kind of thing, because he was always right about that kind of stuff. It's like there are certain people who, when they put out a movie, you know it's going to be good. Generally, I would say I'll throw in John Travolta for the most part. I mean, you know, everything you ever see, the guy's absolutely magical. Tom Cruise, it's always outstanding. You know, there's Ryan Reynolds, it might all be the same, but it's still great. You know, there are certain guys that they just don't fall off. They just seem to always deliver. And our brother Dave said he saw this in one of those big luxury lounge things just this past weekend. He said it's the best movie he has ever seen in his entire life. He was absolutely mesmerized from the time it started till the time it ended. And he also said, does Tom Cruise ever age? The guy's 59 years old, John. He did Top Gun 36 years ago. I mean, try to put all that together too. It's just, it's amazing. He's amazing. And it's just great for the movie industry. And I love that he held it before not just putting it out streaming, but putting it in the theaters.
And one tip that I'll throw out to people is we use the expression buy rumors, sell news a lot. And Tom Cruise's launch of this movie was put off by years, as we've already said. But then when they finally narrowed down when they were going to release it 2 weeks ago, the time to sell was then. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm fading it. It just means that the stock popped from like 28 to 36, I think, Pete, something like that. And now it's back down at 30, still higher than 28. But I mean, Paramount, P-A-R-A, it's a Jim Lebenthal special. But I think you want to be very cognizant of how much hype is into these movies in particular, and you want to take advantage of it rather than overstay your welcome.
Yeah, I totally agree, John. And I think that that's something that's really important for people from an investing standpoint, is to know that once we get the news, you can react. But a lot of the time it's like, all right, we bought before it. You get the news. Now it's time to walk away. And you know, it doesn't mean it can't go higher, because it can, but you've gotten your pop. Take your pop and leave. And that's, I think that's one of the best advice that you ever gave me when I came to Chicago. And by the way, did you see that trading floor? Looks unbelievable at the CBOE, John. Holy smokes.
Yeah, the new floor.
I mean,
it's the first new floor in what, 30 years?
Makes me want to go back to Chicago. Makes me want to. As much as
I'm going to be up there.
Yeah, there is nothing quite like a live trading on the floor and all that. I mean, you and I both miss it, and it's not exactly the same as it once was, but it's pretty cool that they did that.
Yep, I can't wait. That's CBOE stock, folks. That's the symbol too, CBOE, and they did just open that new trading floor. Hey, Pete, as far as unusual option activity, I thought that the judge, I actually gave him credit today, Scott Wapner, because he said, well, you know, a lot of people, Sarat Sethi was saying, a lot of people have access to it at $100 a share that didn't at 1,000. And as logical as that seems, some people don't get it. We're not saying the stock is worth more money because of that. We're saying it's better access, which means more people could buy shares. They could also short shares, I guess. But clearly in Amazon's case, they were buying. Today it was up over 3%, even 4% at one point. And they bought like, I think it was 35,000 of the weekly 130 calls, Pete. and the
Yep.
stock was basically $120 stock, zooming to the upside as people bet that maybe it gets a nice little pop. So
Well,
that's my
John,
UOA.
you and I hear from clowns all the time, and I do mean clowns. And I usually don't like to call people out, but they are truly. I mean, I could use the word jackass, and it's not strong enough. I mean, people will say it doesn't change anything about the stock. Okay, we get it, but what did change? Suddenly, there's access, right? A 20-to-1 split puts it, like you said, $120, give or take. It gives people access to be able to trade it. Not only that, now you've got more liquidity because there's more people being active in it. You also get the option side of it. People couldn't afford to even play the options before. It's traded, and I just looked it up, 2.2 million contracts already today, and we still got a couple hours to trade. Apple's the next closest. Apple is under 700,000 contracts. So for all those people out there who say it doesn't change anything, there's liquidity, there's volatility, there's all sorts of things that come into play, and they're just wrong. There are things that do change, and I think I love Surratt for saying that. By the way, John, he's not used enough, in my opinion, on
I agree.
CNBC. That guy is one of the sharpest guys out there. He's got a great sense of humor. He's a great person. And it seems like sometimes he gets sort of lost in the shuffle. But I will tell you, and I didn't see that today, but I think the guy does an amazing job. And I'm always happy to be on with him because he's a quality guy who's done his research.
Yep, I agree. Well, do you have one, Pete? Do you have a stock with unusual activity?
I do. I'm going to get, oh, sorry. Yeah, I got on that tangent. I'm going to give you a Kellogg.
Oh, that's right.
It was something that I had this morning on the take, and I just liked it because it was right out of the gate. It's interesting to me what they're doing, and you don't expect a stock like this to move very fast, but June 72.5 calls were getting bought. They bought 13,000 of those calls, and that was with the stock trading a little over $68 a share. June means that it's not this Friday. It means it's the following Friday. So there's 2 weeks total for this to play out. We'll see if it actually happens. I immediately jumped on it, John. Inexpensive options. I like to see some of those sometimes where I think there is a possibility for sort of a move like this. And we will see. If we get any kind of positive move over the next couple of weeks, it's not that far for this stock to start getting closer. And by the way, it doesn't have to go to 72.5. This stock goes to 70 in a couple of days. These things start to move. It goes to 71, they really start to move. So we'll see how it all plays out, but they were only 20 cents at the time too.
Nice. Well, Pete, as far as an underdog, I can't remember the last time a New York team was really a serious underdog, but they're playing the Tampa Bay Lightning, which, as you know, because you live right down there, you know, they're world beaters. Those guys, you know, they've won several in a row. They have one of the best franchises in NHL, modern NHL history. But New York has them 2-1. And they just lost, you know, a tight game, 3-2, I think it was. So I'm going to say, I think the Rangers got a shot here. It's not just because Tampa Bay is trailing 2-1, don't count them out. But I'm saying the Rangers have a real shot because the crowd is behind them. And they do have a really talented team.
I agree with you, John. I love the Rangers. We've had a lot of kids from Minnesota go and play for the Rangers. Ryan McDonough is one of them. He's a local kid. He played right over at Cretin-Durham Hall where my son went to school. And I got to tell you, the hockey here in Minnesota is still unbelievable. And where they put guys all over the place. But McDonough was with the Rangers for a long time. He's now with Tampa. And the guy is just an absolute beast. He's a heck of a player for him. I like to still call it Title Town down in Tampa, John. They've got two of those trophies, and they're looking for a third one this year. So they had to win last night. They lost the 2 games up in New York. They won the first game here in Tampa. They're going to get another one in Tampa. And so, you know, hopefully they can steal another one down there and tie it up 2-2. But I'll tell you, it is kind of fun. And I say it, you know, kind of like with a little bit of tongue in cheek, but isn't it amazing? Tampa, which was always known for not being able to do anything in sports, and now all of a sudden we've got guys that are teams that are in the World Series and sometimes winning it. We got guys in the Super Bowl, you know, and then we've obviously got the hockey team. So I'm really excited for Tampa and the whole area because these guys absolutely love what they're doing and they love their hockey. So it's a lot of fun.
Last one, Pete. What do you think of Steph? Can anybody stop Steph Curry?
That guy is so fun, John. I mean, you can hate him all you want, you can like him, you can do whatever, but the guy is such money. It's unbelievable. And
Yeah.
game one, I tell you what, the Celtics, there is something special about those guys too. I mean, Jason Tatum and all these guys. I mean, they're so fun to watch because they're kind of blue collar and yet they still have a little bit of offense to them. And I think that the way they go through their process is pretty cool. They just fell on their face in the third quarter and they got absolutely to the point where the hole was too deep. They couldn't dig out of it. They dug it. They got a little bit deep on the game one, but in the fourth quarter, they lit it up. But their 3-point shooting was 51% in game one. In game two, which they lost, that dripped it all the way down to 40. And actually, their shooting out inside of the 3-point line was even worse than that. So, it just wasn't their night, and it was definitely a Golden State night. But all the power to those guys in San Francisco, our Bay Area, John. It's kind of fun to see the Bay Area shining pretty nice the way they are right now.
Yeah. Well, folks, this has been the Rebel Edge. I encourage you to tune in every week. We will be bringing you stocks, unusual activity, and a little thought on some sports here and there. And we'd encourage your feedback. So please shoot that to our Twitter or YouTube accounts. And we look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.